What do you think of when you hear someone say the word farm? Huge fields of green grass, the occasional animal grazing at their pleasure with plenty of room and comfort. That may have been true 30 years ago, but things have changed. Over the years, the demand for meat has drastically increased, and farmers were forced to create a more efficient way of farming. Something cheap and effective so they could meet the demand of the consumers. They learned to genetically modify animals so that they had more meat, and they changed the animals' environments from green fields to cold metal cells. The animals were packed together so tightly that they could barely move, making them fatter and weaker over time. Diseases that sprung up in the animals were combated by injecting them with harmful chemicals, and so the age of industrial farming began.
Metal buildings confine animals indoors, with minimal room for normal behaviors and little or no access to sunlight and fresh air, causing animals to be standing in their own feces for their entire lives. Serious diseases form in their meat from their unnatural environment, diseases such as E. coli and salmonella. Each year, 76 million Americans become ill from foodborne illnesses, causing thousands to die. Experts believe that the outbreak of H1N1, aka swine flu, was likely caused by the overcrowding of pigs on factory farms and the storage of their waste in giant manure lagoons. To stop these harmful diseases, they inject the animals with chemicals, which are almost just as harmful to the meat as the bacteria.
A lot of people think organic means that animals are raised in a happy, healthy environment. And generally, all organic means is that the feed and the inputs are organic approved, but those animals can still not be treated very well and or slaughtered poorly. And a lot of people don't realize that. And that it's about more than just, what they're fed or what medicines you use on them. The one thing we do is we keep things small, and then we also rotate our animals. And similarly, we have our goats and our pigs kind of keeping back a lot of the weeds and eucalyptus on our hillside. And again, their droppings turn into nutrients for the soil. And so in a lot of large factory settings, the animals never really get to move around or leave a pretty small enclosure. A lot of large-scale animal operations, their waste is not really utilized effectively and frequently ends up not being disposed of properly, sitting and going to waste in holding tanks or large pools where it's then maybe pumped out and put into a landfill. And instead it ends up polluting our water system as runoff or all sorts of other things. In the very conventional factory farm model, the concern really isn't about the animal's well-being. There's not a lot of thought put into that. It's really about getting as much meat in the shortest amount of time possible. They're not really concerned about taking care of them. Frequently they're bred to not really be able to walk or not develop muscle in certain areas, so they're just putting on meat. Oftentimes they don't get to go outside. Even some of these labels, their restrictions are kind of arbitrary or lenient. Humane labels that say animals have to have access to the outdoors for a certain amount of time a day. But that word access lets people trick the system by all they have to do is have doors open. But the animal isn't even able to walk because it's been bred that way. And so they're technically humane. But then again, it also hurts us. This waste, when farms aren't thinking about the environment, it runs downstream and pollutes the land all around with this hyper enriched nitrogen waste runoff that plants can't grow in it, and then it gets into our groundwater. Overuse of antibiotics, that affects us, and it causes new strains of viruses to reproduce. When every pig is crammed together into a pen, as soon as one gets sick, they all get sick, and diseases just fester and multiply. And so the solution is to just constantly preemptively use antibiotics. And the thing about antibiotics is viruses slowly evolve to resist the effects of antibiotics. And that's why we see things like chicken flu and H1N1 and these other viruses that are jumping to other species. Treat them as well as we can while they're alive, and the milk will be sweeter, the meat will taste better. Just think, why wouldn't you want better tasting products? There's so many ways to work around these things, and some of these labels really don't mean what people think they mean.
Many people don't realize grass-fed meat doesn't actually mean that the animals were free roaming. In fact, it is very probable that they are confined in tight pens or one large pen and fed grass instead of corn. Other labels such as organic, happy, free range, etc. mean nothing, either because meat producers have found so many loopholes in the system that they can practically say anything about their meat, with it only being technically true. And they have become so influential that rules, such as the rule that meats must be labeled cloned if it is in fact cloned meat, has been ended so not to scare the consumers.
And so I think really the most important thing you can do is attempt to get to know at least a few farms and farmers in your area. But rainforest certified, there's these labels that people think mean something, or when they go to Whole Foods or they go to certain high-end grocery stores that kind of market these things as sustainable or happy, and they use some of these words. Often these words are just marketing and they don't necessarily mean what we think they mean. It's not convenient to have to get to know farms or farmers or go to the farmers market. And even at the farmers market, that's kind of this thing we have to get past. If there are farmers who might not be organic certified, they just can't afford to pay for the certification process. It's about getting to know them, but they might not have that cool hip label that people associate with happy, healthy farms. The best ways to help is to visit local farms and really find, as individual or as a family, find the farmer where you're going to get your meat from and you're going to get your eggs from, and then support them consistently and build that relationship. I mean, if this is going to change, we have to support these smaller farmers and build these relationships with our community and just really stay steady and support them, because that's the only way we can get around this system.
You can also help by volunteering at local farms and organizations such as Pie Ranch, by buying meat from local farms, and by telling friends and family what you've learned and how they can help end this travesty.
We do also live here, so someone just used the shower. All right,